how do we know if they're winning? Too many leaders don't actually clarify that. They just, we got to make more money. How do they know that they're winning? And is that goal attached to their own personal goal?
Welcome to the Ambitious Agent Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Spencer Combs. He is a renowned personal strategist, leadership coach, and the visionary behind Momentum and Mastery Framework. With over 2 decades of experience in transforming distressed businesses into thriving enterprises, Spencer has dedicated his career to helping business leaders unlock their full potential and achieve unshakable progress. Spencer's journey began with a passion for understanding the dynamics of successful businesses and the psychology of leadership. He has worked with a diverse range of clients from small startups to large corporations, guiding them through challenging times and driving sustainable growth. His unique approach combines strategic insights with practical tools, empowering leaders to create lasting change and build resilient, high-performing organizations. Welcome to Ambitious Agent, Spencer Combs.
I'm excited to be here. Maybe I should condense that for us. That's a long entry, but thank you. Yeah, I'm ecstatic, Dustin.
Well, I love it because, we typically only have like realtors on the show. I'm kind of constantly taking from other businesses ideas. And I think the fact that you're helping a lot of different business types build their business is going to be helpful for agents to hear because they get it's a very incestuous business and they're all doing exactly what other realtors are doing. So I'm excited about what you can bring to the table.
Yeah. Well, let me throw this at you. I cut my teeth in the business world in real estate. So back in, 2004, I actually had 6 buyer's agents and 2 admins. We had a pretty good sized business. And I've also spent a great deal of my life around real estate. And I actually still have a license now. So it's not like I'm widely removed from the real estate industry, but I've just found that most of these principles are very universal, and independent contractors like real estate agents usually thrive with all this content.
Yeah, I love it. So let's go way back. So 2 decades of doing this, both with your own real estate team. So kind of tell us about your journey.
Coming out of high school, I went actually to Bible college, and then from Bible college, I came out of that kind of lost, not sure what I wanted to do other than I knew I should be ministering in some sort of way. But I went to a super legalistic type religious environment. And when I came out I had to come out of that. I had to because I realized that that's not the only way to go. And I got really, really curious on people's behaviors and how and why people do what they do because of such messed up things and, the things I saw in childhood too, just within the family and outside. So when I came out of high school and then went to college, and then when I came out of that, I had a real estate agent actually approach me and said, you'd be a really good buyer's agent. Now at the time I was making around $1,300 actually. I remember now, $1,350 a month. And I was doing security. And she said, look, I'll split it with you. Just be a buyer's agent 50-50. Now this is in 99, right? This is when the MLS had just gotten onto the internet.
Yeah.
Right. We were still having books delivered to the office. So in any event, I got into the real estate industry, took off very fast because I've always been good at 2 things. I've always been good at helping people strategize and make things better. I got a gift for optimization. Whatever situation I'm in, I'm looking for ways to, increase the performance. And on the other side of that coin, I'm also really, really good at moving forward despite the circumstances. And my life and history has been riddled with a tremendous amount of challenges, right? Including seizures. You ever have your driver's license suspended medically and sell houses? Not exactly the easiest thing to do, but we still did it. Right?
Especially before Uber.
Yes, exactly. It was before Uber. And I can tell you, I'm probably one of the few real estate agents ever to have shown homes in a Merita bread truck because one of my clients worked for them.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of like that's where I got going. And then when I'll tell you how I got into the coaching and this and how I got into this content business of working with people and helping. Eventually, I ended up in a divorce moved back to South Carolina from Florida, which, by the way, that's where that country ass accent comes from, is the Carolinas. I'm not ignorant to that. And then when I got back, I had a lot of people wanting to know, how did you do what you did? Like, how did you build that team? And so I started helping other people do it. But I was also coming off of that divorce, and I ended up discovering those 3 critical factors that I talk about all the time. These are the 3 things that top performers all have, and they work in congruency.
Nice. So you have a new book coming out, Momentum and Mastery. It's like things that you've been able to put together from helping a lot of people over the last 2 decades. So what is the relationship between momentum and mastery? And how did you come up with the title of this book? And what are the frameworks that are included in it?
So the simplicity of this is that after working with so many people, it doesn't take long to start recognizing patterns. I would come to a room and I would teach people the same content, and you'd have one person that would take it and run with it, and then you have one that didn't. But what really would mess with your mind, and this is still happening today, I'm sure you're thinking about somebody. If you're listening to this, it might be you, it might be somebody else. But there are people that were stacked in terms of resources. They had all the contacts, they knew the technology, they had all the stuff, but they could never get it going. They heard the same content, they just never could get themselves going. And then you had a whole different group of people, that one agent who was extremely strapped for resources. They were scrapping their way through, and they thrived, like incredibly thrived. And so I got super curious about what's the difference between this one and that one. What consistently developed, though, is there's a pattern that a lot of agents really focus on being either really good at momentum, they lean in on it, or they lean in on just the mastery. And that's where we ended up clarifying kind of, this person really loves to just take action and they'll figure it out, and then they just kind of drift along the way. Or they always want to get it right, and so they're always a little tentative, right? And that would be the mastery side of it. And that gift of understanding yourself first and then understanding the opposite framework can round this out for you. And that's where we get people have explosive growth. Because if you're mastery minded, we just got to create some momentum. And if you're momentum minded, we just got to create some mastery.
Yeah, I think, I can definitely see that on my team. I think sometimes people might say they'll use mastery as an excuse of like, hey, I want to get this right. And I'm like implement now and we'll look at the results later and then fix things and let's move. Everything can be done much faster than everybody thinks it can. So I kind of I lead a team of 44 agents, and I find that it's best for like a slight nudge from the rear, like not too hard, but just constantly pushing. But from a technical standpoint, I don't have too many people that are saying, I can't do this because of whatever technical thing, because we can provide that. But I do see it a lot from a momentum standpoint in terms of like, if they don't see early success, then they just want to give up on things. Has that been your experience? Absolutely.
And unfortunately, society has conditioned us to even shorten or narrow the amount of time for that. Yeah, the necessity for us now to get this instant feeling, and we say it cliche, like everybody knows that instant gratification is not good, but we don't realize how much it's pervasive in so many parts of our lives. And so if I don't see a result, I'll put it this way. Most agents would think that if I give this 30 days all in, that's enough for me to get where I want to go. 30 days feels like a long time, but I'm going to tell you, it takes longer than 30 days to see anything actually come out in this business. And so you got to have the conditioning to be able to pull that off. And that's what those 4 factors of the momentum or the drift to drive framework comes into play.
So how are you helping people identify if they're more momentum or more mastery? And then once you're identifying those characteristics about them, are these like kind of Myers-Briggs tests or like?
This has been a life work of mine. And so it's unfolding as we go, right? Kind of like you, we just go take action, we follow the feedback and we work through this stuff. So there's no actual test for this yet. I think most people, though, intuitively know kind of, yeah, that sounds more like me. I will tell you that when we use those 3 critical factors, and is it okay if I share those right now?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So there's 3 critical factors. For a top performer to get unshakable progress, as we call it, because most people, when they come to me, they're looking for progress, right? They say they want achievement, but what they're really looking for is progress. I want to know that if I take action, that I'm going to get like this is going to move the needle. This is going to move my business forward. And so they're looking for that unshakable progress. You got to have all 3 of these factors. And what I find is most people are only using typically 2, okay? So number 1 is mechanics. When I started off, when I was like 20 years old into this whole conversation, I drove deep into the structures and the processes and the how to get things done. I'm a systems guy by nature. Like that's the only way I can come up with all these frameworks. And I appreciate, by the way, frameworks because what works for one person may not work for the other. So if I give you a specific formula, it might not work quite as well. But if I give you a framework and then take your raw resources and plug it in, then you get a result. So that's why we call it a framework. But anyway, I focused in on mechanics, and I got really good at mechanics. Like I was that guy with an $8,000 Citrix WinFrame server so that all my buyer's agents could log in. And we're talking 2003, right? This was not when you had online CRMs. Like Top Producer was still on the CD. Those that have been around for a little while. So with that being said, mechanics was a big deal. It's important, but it also has to be connected to mindset. And that's the part that I had to really go into a deep valley with when I was dealing with my divorce and all the challenges that went along with that and letting go of that business and moving and all those stuff. It was a deep valley of mindset challenges. And I got really deep in that conversation. So, I'm a master practitioner in NLP. I have a hypnosis certification. I have multiple coaching certifications, and they're designed to help me work with someone on a mindset perspective. And when you put those 2 together, mechanics and mindset, you're going to create mastery. What I found is that there's a 3rd factor, and you got to take action. You can actually know what you're doing, and you can believe that it's all possible, but if you're not going to go take action, it's not going to happen. So movement is the 3rd one. Mechanics, mindset, movement. So if I'm looking to clarify where somebody is, all I have to do, anybody ever goes to one of our events, you'll see it in like a Venn diagram. I take those 3 bubbles and put them around. You'll find that there's some patterns that emerge. One pattern is frustration. So if you're listening to this and you're like constantly frustrated, can't ever get the business going. Those are people that have the mindset and the movement, like they're taking the action because they believe it's possible. They got all the mindset part and they're out here, but frustrated because I'm not getting the results. That's the case. Then we need to focus in on the mechanics, right? If you are burning out, it's because you're all about mechanics and you're taking action or moving, but the mindset's not there. So you're constantly hitting a glass ceiling, right? Have you ever experienced any of that, Dustin? I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's kind of those are 2 of the 3, 4.
I mean, I have a kind of an unshakable sense of like if I get derailed, if I lose a listing presentation, if somebody doesn't want to work with me, whatever reason, like it's like I have maybe 30 minutes of that's annoying, pisses me off, and then I'm right back to it. I'm like, it's just more motivating for me than anything else. So I don't get derailed easy.
Got it. Well, then there's 2 more patterns, right? So the 3rd pattern is going to be stagnation. That's somebody who's got the mindset and they got the mechanics, but they cannot get themselves moving, right? And so that's a stagnating. So we talk about the movement stuff there. But the 4th pattern, which is that unshakable pattern, is the one in the dead center, because they have all 3 of these factors. They're typically noticed by impatience. Like there's no reason why we can't get this going faster. What's going on? And then we get really uptight with other people.
What was that one called again, Spencer?
This is the unshakable patterns, one in the middle, right? So their mindset, mechanics, movement, what you were just talking about, right? We'll have a 5-second funeral. We'll let this thing go. We'll move forward. Well, that's the mindset factor where you have flexibility, right? That's at the pinnacle of the whole thing. The truth is that even in itself carries some negative emotion that we have to use for our forward momentum. And that it's usually impatience is what I see, because people come to me as like, let's go, need to hurry up and get this thing going.
Yeah, that would be hard for me to learn to get past, because, it does, like you said, it has negatives, like the impatient, it sometimes lacks empathy. When you're like, okay, why can't you just do it? Like the stagnation thing, is difficult for me to watch in people that I see so much potential in. I'm like, why can't you get moving? So what do you recommend to like get these stagnating businesses? I don't want to spoil the book.
I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's such a common conversation. Look, if somebody's listening to this right now, there's a strong chance that you're dealing with one of the 4 Ds that I call it, right? So it's either, you actually mentioned derailments. Derailments for me are actual surprises, right? But you may be dealing with just all the demands in life, right? Got to pay the bills, got to take care of the kids. We also have distractions.
Of course.
Constant. Everybody knows about distractions. And then the ever-present delusion, where we think something's important when it's really not that important. We do that to create and maintain status quo and or mediocrity. All right, so these are all things that kind of get us off track. But if I'm looking to really empower my team, maybe you're listening to this and you're like, I am that impatient guy. I am that impatient woman who has, I've got all this stuff together, Spencer, but my struggle is getting other people to do it, right? Or even clients, right? They got every reason why they're supposed to move, but for whatever reason, they're just kind of like digging in. Like, how do we get people to move? Well, that's the momentum framework, and that's where we talk about drift to drive. First thing we have to do is determine, what's my drift? Like, what am I doing right now? This is my status quo. And the decision has to be made to go from mediocrity to the top of the mountain. All right. I think so many people right now are sitting at base camp and they're accepting the view at base camp instead of getting to the pinnacle. To move someone forward, like yourself or anyone else around you, there are 4 factors. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's 4 factors. 1 is dream. Sounds super cliche, but the truth is that most of us get so, you ever seen a horse with the blinders on?
Yep.
Get so focused on what's right in front of us or what's going on around us, one of those 4 Ds I just mentioned, that we don't ever take the time to look outside of our own circumstance. Now, some people do too much of this. So that's why I said there's all 4 of these have to be present. But if you're not dreaming, you need to, right? When was the last time you went and drove around and looked at some exclusive homes? When was the last time you went and looked at a car you really wanted or jewelry or something, right? The lifestyle. When was the last time you ate at a very high-end restaurant, one that would cost you 3 times what you normally would spend? Having that kind of experience will skew the point of reference for your mind, and it will naturally bring you to number 2.
Well, hold on. Like on the dream one, Spencer, you just made me think of something. And Thomas Watson Sr., the founder of IBM, he got it from John Patterson, the founder of National Cash Register. Watson learned everything from Patterson, and he had what he called 100% club in terms of a sales contest. And one of the things that Watson took to IBM when he started IBM from Patterson was exactly what you were saying, is these salesmen that may not have the dream, they didn't have the lifestyle, he would purposefully send them, the top performers, on a trip, their family, their wives, to Europe, and like take them on shopping sprees so they could get used to the lifestyle and want to maintain that lifestyle. And for him, in turn, like sell more cash registers.
Yeah.
Tabulating machines.
Exactly. So, when I did like productivity coaching and things like that, we would have what's called dream nights. And so I would have luxury cars and, clothing and things brought to the office. And we'd all have this night where we just talked about playing in a bigger game, right? A bigger field. My wife and I, every year, we do what we have a planning retreat that we do every year. We've been doing it since 2015. And that's how I ended up in Florida, by the way. I moved from South Carolina to Florida because we decided through that process of dreaming that we rather live closer to the beach. And if you look at my complexion, you can see that's where I've been. But the truth is, I mean, we always go places where there's lots of opulence. That's the word I use, right? Last year, we're walking around the Riviera in France. And, just seeing these guys riding around with Ferraris and these huge boats, yachts. You look at a yacht and it has a helipad on it. Like, it's not even just a normal yacht. This thing has a helicopter pad on the back of it. Like, your brain starts getting scrambled. It's thinking, what are these guys doing? What are these people doing that's different than I am? I'm not any different.
Yeah.
It changes the perspective.
It does. And I had a similar experience because I came from a very blue collar background, and I was doing retail management, for 17 years. And I went recruited from Bed Bath & Beyond to Pottery Barn. And just that one twist, and the woman that recruited me she said, go secret shop this. And I said, I don't even know what Pottery Barn is. They sell pottery. And she sends me into this store, and it was a bunch of like women that were much older than me, very classy. And I was like, I don't know if I can manage these. And she's like, I've been recruiting you, like basically secret shopping me at the store. I've seen the way that you're managing your people. I know you can do this. You need to step out of your comfort zone. This will be good for your career. And I kind of went with it. And then I started doing in-home design consultations at there was a penthouse, like wraparound balcony apartment at the Watergate in DC. It was like overlooking the Potomac, and it was some dignitary. And I'm walking around their house and these, $1 million homes in Arlington, $1 million plus homes. And I'm looking at their bookcases, and I'm like, okay, they're not, and I'm talking to them, and I'm like, I can sell to them. They're not smarter than me. They're just reading better books. So I'm like, I got to get over this mindset that, this self-limiting belief. So I love the dream one. And it's funny because I'm not particularly a motivational guy, and I'm not like woo-woo in that regard. But I do a little bit of affirmations. I will write down what I'm trying to accomplish 3 times every morning, every night, just to like get my mind set on what's actually important, like actual tasks. So that helps guide me. So you said dream. What's the next one?
So naturally, if you start dreaming, the next thing that starts showing up is desire, right? At some point, you start seeing this stuff and you're thinking, well, why not me? I want that. And when I talk about filling up the desire bucket, or, looking at this as a battery, keeping that, there's 4 cells to the battery to keep it charged so that you're taking action. It's not really about just the things you want, because nobody wants a stack of paper with dead notables on it, right? What they want is what that money is going to buy for them. So the key to this is clarifying, what do you value, right? By the way, all the mastery people right now, if they were listening and they've heard this whole thing about dream, and then they hear this thing about, it's like, whatever. But the truth is that when I get someone to slow down long enough, one of the best things that coach ever did with me was tell me, he said, Spencer, we're going to slow you down so I can speed you up. Right? That's what this is. It feels like you're slowing down. But when you slow down and you really start to pay attention to, what do I value? What is it about that I want? Right? I want a waterfront home. Why? Because I want to entertain, and I love the ability to have people come over. But more than that, I personally appreciate sitting on the water and the peace that I feel from that. Right? That's me. I don't know what you want, but the desires and understanding what they are will move you. So if you take dream and desire and put those two together, we're gonna end up with some level of direction, and that's the fun side of this. The last two, not quite as much fun, because that's inspirational, right? The desperation happens on the bottom side of this, and that's number 3, which is disturbance. There's things that move people, the dark side. There are things in your life that have prodded you. They moved you from the backside instead of inspired you forward, like dreaming and desire. That's the stuff that you want to use for fuel. I remember to this day, I started working with an ERA brokerage in South Carolina, and I started working with the broker they had 12 brokerages. I was working with number 11, right? And the owner said, well, let's just see what you do with that, right? It was very much a good luck, buddy. Kind of like, I don't know who you are, but whatever. And I remember in 8 months, we went from number 11 to number 2 in that entire organization. And that became like a massive driver for me, because it was like, okay, you don't think it's going to happen? Watch me, right? There are things that maybe in childhood, even in our adulthood, people that are around us that have said, and we can tap in and use it for fuel. If it doesn't disturb you, it will not move you. Typically, you'll hear me say, if it doesn't juice you, it won't move you. What are those negative, desperational type things? I've got to get this thing going. I must, right? Turning your shoulds to musts. That's the disturbance.
Yeah, I love the disturbance thing, and not to get too Sigmund Freud there, but I do think there's just, whether it's from what happened to you as a child to there's different things that drive different people, and I guess my personality type, I would most compare to, like, you brought up Tim Grover and Michael Jordan, is like kind of that Michael Jordan competitiveness. Like, I don't need a big house. I don't even need a nice car. I will probably live in this house until I move, but I'm not going to move into anything bigger and better, because it's the competitiveness it's that juice that fuels me. And in that Last Dance documentary with Jordan, it wasn't just on the basketball court. It was gambling. It was golf. But when he was doing that quarter game with the security staff, he was just competitive, flicking those quarters with those guys. And like, my 18-year-old daughter has people over last night for 4th of July, and, a bunch of 18-year-old kids in my backyard, and they're playing yard games and stuff. And I'm like, all right, I want to beat all of you guys. And it's unshakable for me. Like it's a fuel that I haven't even begun to realize why I am the way that I am. But it's a good quality probably as a team lead.
Absolutely. It is. And yet again, it also can be difficult for a team lead if they don't understand how to tap into other people's desires and disturbances, because we assume that other people feel and think and look at things the same way that we do. So if I can get in enough trust and get clarity on what moves someone, what are their desires, what are their dreams, what are their desires, what disturbs them, right? I'm now moving them through this whole process of creating movement, right? Getting them to take action. I have an agent right now. Her only goal when we got started at the beginning of the year was to be able to hit a certain number so that she could be in Gary Keller's top 200 at Keller Williams, right? And so she hit that in June. Super jacked. That's all she wanted. Well, guess what? Now we got to raise the ante. What's the next thing, right? Because it's all about, she has the finances. She's got money. She just went for like 3 weeks to Europe. For some people, it's just about winning, which is fine, right? I have to help people understand it's not about the things. It's whatever it is that moves you. That's the power of this. You don't need, for some people, it's just getting their name on market share, right? I just want to have a certain market share in a certain part of town. That's it. Okay, well, let's focus on it. What disturbs you right now, right? What's keeping you from getting there? Are there people that say that you can't? They don't want you there? You're too young? You're too old? What is it, right? Get pissed off, because when you get down deep into that stuff, it charges you up. It will eventually lead you to a threshold moment, as we call it, and you go into making a decision. And threshold, if you're in sales, this is helpful for everybody. Threshold only happens, a decision really only happens when 3 criteria are met, and there have to all 3 be there at the same time. 1, it must be done. Like, I got to do this. There's no question. It must be done. 2, I have to do this. There's nobody coming to save me. There's no other. I have to do this. And 3, it must be done now. So many in the real estate environment, right? We'll sit across the table from someone and they're like, yeah, we need to move. And I know there's nobody else going to make it happen for me, but can we just wait, right? Or I got to get it done now. I know I got to do it, but I'm waiting on so-and-so, right? And they blame other people. All 3 have to be there. And the fastest way to get someone to a decision is to take them through the dream. Where do you want to move to? What's going to be like when you get that equity out, right? Dream. And then what's important to you about that? Getting into their values. And then what would happen if you didn't move? Now I'm getting into the disturbances. At some point, there's a threshold that gets created, and suddenly it's just the most natural move to make the decision, which is number 4.
So, the other D's are helping them kind of get to that decision framework. But once they're there, this works both for your clients and for your team, like those 4 D's.
Mm-hmm. It does. And that's the thing is that I have someone right now, insurance broker, guy owns 2 agencies in 2 different states. He's got an opportunity that's very large, 14 times EBITDA, like it's very big for him. And he's actually considering not taking it now because he went through this exercise with me. He's momentum minded, like that's his thing. He takes action. He's starting to see a path for how he could do that himself and keep it all instead of selling out or doing anything right now. But the only way he's able to make that decision is not because I have any kind of inordinate information that would help him make that decision other than the framework. What do you really want? Why do you want that? And then what would happen if you didn't? And what's the decision that needs to be made naturally? Because as I point out to everyone, you need to have what's called an anchor goal. That's why we have 3 to 5 year out conversations, something you can latch onto and move yourself forward towards it. So if I'm working with a client, like in his case, we're gonna tap into that. I'm gonna clarify the anchor goal, then boom, immediately we go into mastery and figure out how to make all that work.
I love it. All right, is there any part of the framework that you see as like the biggest challenge for team leads out there? Well, team leaders and just business leaders.
Biggest challenges are actually wrapped around what we were just talking about, that a lot of people are stuck in one of those 3 areas, right? So if you got a lot of frustration going on, we need to get people to get into the mechanics, right? And they don't like it, but the mechanics involve 5 pieces. First thing is clarity of the outcome. How do we know if they're winning? Too many leaders don't actually clarify that. They just, we got to make more money. But they don't, how do they know that they're winning? And is that goal attached to their own personal goal?
Sorry to interrupt, Spencer.
No.
Love that clarification, because I think one of the reasons why we love playing games is because there are clear rules and set outcomes. And imagine if you were going to like a soccer field or a football field or a baseball field and there were no rules and everybody just showed up. And that's what I think a lot of times business leaders do, and especially in real estate, is they're not giving people clear, defined rules on how to win.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the truth is that the rules show up in the next step of this, right? The plan, the benchmarks, things of that nature. But that stuff is, you can't clearly define how to play the game unless you know how to win the game. Like how do you know when you've won, right? In golf, it's the one with the lowest number. Okay, well then now the question is, what are the rules of getting that to happen? You bring up a point that a lot of leaders actually mess this up a lot, is that they keep moving the goalposts on people, right? So they do well, but then they don't actually congratulate them if they go well, and they move it again without necessarily clarifying why we're moving it, or they keep changing it on a regular basis. That causes frustration and or what I call a diffused focus for everybody around you, because now it's kind of like, it doesn't matter, I'm not ever going to win. And people don't do anything unless they know that they can win that unshakable progress.
No, I love it. No, I agree. It's difficult because I think I'm guilty of that sometimes. It's like I don't stop to congratulate myself. So I don't do that enough for my team because I'm just like, for me, it's never enough. And that's something that's friction between my wife and I. We're a husband and wife team. So she's like, when is it ever going to be enough? Like you want to get this, and then once you get this, you're going to want this. And it's like, it's the competitive nature in me. That's what I want.
Yeah. Well, the truth is, and I got this from Tony Robbins, right? Progress is greater than achievement. And that's a really hard statement for people who are drivers like you, because it's all about achievement. Well, the problem with that is if I chase nothing but achievement, there's always another mountaintop. Every time I hit one, I'm going to look for the next one. So what we're really looking for is a constant evolution of progress. We're looking for that consistency of moving ourselves forward, which now uncaps the whole thing. There's no pinnacle. Actually, it's just keep on going to infinity and beyond, because who knows what's going to happen between now and then. It's always a game of progress.
No, that's great. So we saw that you've been hired in the past and increased revenue for a lot of teams, businesses, not just in real estate, like some pretty impressive numbers. Can you share like any specific insights? You shared the insurance company that you helped. You shared the 11th place ERA team that you helped. Any other stories you'd like to share?
Sure. Well, let's go back to the insurance company. When I got sought out in that situation, they were running about $1 million in top line revenue a year, their book of business in insurance. Okay. And the reason I was being sought out is because in a few months from that time, they were getting ready to lose 30% of their book of business. And so there was a little bit of, well, not a little bit, quite a bit of fear. You're going to drop $300,000. That's a lot of money, especially if you're running everything as if you had $1 million, right? So when we came in, we realized there was not a lot of that mastery conversation. It was a structured discussion. And so we came in, we helped them understand just metrics in general, helped them clarify what needed to be done. And we basically went through the mechanical portion, but there was a lot of discussion on mindset too. A lot of mindset discussion. At the end of 1 year cycle with them, they ended at 1.8. So they went from $1 million to 700 to 1.8. And it wasn't anything necessarily that I came in and did some song and dance, because you'll hear me say all the time, this isn't motivational hype. This is legitimate structure. Like there's a process to all of this. I'm good with the rah-rah, but I actually understand the science behind it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just the rah-rah for rah-rah's sake. It's understanding how to shift someone mentally so they can get what they want. So in that was one example. Another example in the insurance world, different, but similar, was a young man who worked for an insurance company, an Allstate, was really good at mindset. Like he was a guy you'd want to get up and like fire up a group. Like he was really good at that. And when I came in with him, I started having him document his stuff. Well, fast forward 5 years. Today, he owns his own brokerage, independent brokerage, and he's got multiple salespeople and doing really, really well now. Actually has his own podcast. But all it took was me helping him see the mindset side and then bring him over to the mechanics, because he just needed more mastery. He had no problem. He was I call people that get frustrated all the time, by the way, I mentioned it more than once, but that are all mindset and movement. We call them so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good. Mm-hmm. Right? One more. An agent called and reached out to me and said, Spencer, I don't know what's wrong. For the last several years, I've done well, and this year I just can't seem to get anything going. I don't know what's wrong. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it, just not getting anywhere. And so I talked to her for a moment and realized, and she said, well, first of this year, we actually bought our dream home. We've been moving in. It's been very busy. And I'm sure that's part of it, is that I need to, get back to doing all the things I used to do. And that triggered in me that she had lost that anchor goal factor, that movement factor, the thing that moved her forward. Because I said, well, what's your next thing? Like, are you retiring at this point? Because you said you have a dream home. And when I got her to focus or stretch out what she really wanted further down the path, it didn't take her long. She was, well, I've always wanted to do this thing. Okay, well, how much is that going to cost? I don't know. And the minute I got her moving in that direction and thinking about the bigger picture and how to make that happen, a big piece of what I have to help people understand, especially real estate agents, the business is not there just for you to pay your bills. The business is a vehicle to finance the lifestyle you want.
Yeah.
And if you can't clarify your lifestyle clearly, you're going to struggle with pressing and driving forward when when the phone feels heavy, if it's not attached to a lifestyle in that it's not going to, if I don't make this call, I'm not going to get what I want. If it's not attached to that kind of outcome in your mind, then you can delay it. You can do whatever you want.
I love it. I think the listeners out there, if you are hearing what Spencer's saying and what he's been able to do in a lot of different industries, mentioning just now insurance and real estate, and think about if he can do this for an insurance company, that the sexiness level is like a 0 out of 100. Like there's no HGTV channel for insurance companies. Like we have such unlimited amount of content available to us because people love houses, and we are in a pretty sexy industry that there's so much here that you can work with. So the listeners here are in real estate. So if they need help with their business and they're thinking about hiring a coach, how do they get a hold of you?
There's two things you can do. The one, I would suggest going to unshakeablesecrets.com. I will do on a regular basis. I do a little web class for about an hour and talk about how to get involved or get plugged in. So unshakeablesecrets.com is one. The other thing you can do is when you go to spencercombs.com, there's an opportunity there to get on a daily text. So, and my contact information is there. So all the social is on spencercombs.com. So if you want to get plugged in, that's probably the easiest thing to do. There's so many ways to get connected, like unshakeablegroup.com, because I do a Spencer Uncensored. If you got sensitive ears, you may not want to listen to that one, but it's, but anyway, those are the two biggest things, spencercombs.com and then unshakeablesecrets.com.
All right, Spencer. Well, this was great. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on Ambitious Agent. I can't wait for the listeners to hear this. Any parting words that you'd like to send out?
Figure out what you want. Put a price tag to that, and then get yourself into a rhythm of following the feedback with what we call a WRAP session, WRAP, weekly results and planning. You can double your output with 30 minutes a week if you'll just do that.
I love it, Spencer. Well, thank you so much for coming on. See you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.